Hey, what's going on everybody? My name is Jay and welcome to the Shiplife. So for today's video, we do have to go over what has been the talk of the town undoubtedly for the past 24 hours, and that is the topic of TUI Cruises. Now, TUI Cruises over the past week or so has been making a couple policy changes in regards to booster requirements, and now they are talking about flight requirements as far as you going to your home port or the home port that you'll be sailing out of the day before your cruise. Basically, they don't want it, which kind of go against the norm for what you typically would do when you're taking your cruise. We also have a couple cancellations, unfortunately, for Royal Caribbean and their sister company, Celebrity Cruises. And then toward the end of the video, I do have some optimistic news for NCL. So earlier this week, TUI Cruises, which for the most part kind of caters to the German crowd over in Europe and has a 50-50 joint venture with Royal Caribbean, came out and said that moving forward soon, in order to sail on board their ships as a passenger, you must not only be vaccinated, but boosted as well. The only exemption to this rule is that you have taken a vaccine within the past 3 months. That's it. I'm sure there's probably going to be some medical and religious exemptions in there maybe, but who knows at this point. That's not the information that they put out. But anyway, right after this, they circled back around and made another policy update, which kind of irked a lot of people's nerves and grind their gears and made people wonder how this could even be done. TUI Cruises came out and said that if you're going to sail on their ships, they do not want you to do a pre-cruise stay, meaning they don't want you to go to the home port that you'll be sailing out of the day before your cruise. Now, this is strange because this is something that we all know to do when it comes to cruising. It's just kind of common sense. Should there be flight delays, cancellations, anything of that nature, any trouble you might run into before your cruise. Now, obviously, this new information has not really been well received by a lot of guests that are planning to go on TUI cruise sailings. And then everybody, even over here in the United States, is also kind of curious and they're a little frustrated. They say this is nothing more than an intention to get people kind of pissed off when it comes to this situation. And personally, just looking at it, guys, I am kind of curious as to how this could even happen. Now, there are people that obviously book everything as far as their vacation plans with a cruise line like TUI Cruises, NCL, or, you know, they take care of pretty much the whole package between your flight and your hotel and your cruise and everything else that goes in between that. But what about the people that are maybe driving into the port? Also, people that are booking their flights separately and not booking directly with TUI Cruises, for example. How does all of this kind of mix together? I don't really understand how TUI Cruises could know that a passenger has even gone to the cruise port or even in that home ported city the day before their cruise, unless they're stalking them on Instagram, or maybe they got, I don't know, workers that are kind of running around investigating and looking for people in the city prior to the cruise. Honestly, it's just a very strange and interesting rule to kind of implement. Now, TUI Cruises has said that you can do a post-cruise stay, meaning after the cruise you can go do whatever it is that you want. Now, I do understand that to a certain degree they are trying to err on the side of caution because we have the Omicron variant. I believe there was a lady that got positive. She was tested positive for COVID, and she made a big deal about it, stating that TUI needs to just kind of put in and implement more rules and regulations as far as who's sailing on their ships. However, personally, I do believe this has gone a little bit too far. For one, like I said, there is literally no way to tell, for the most part, unless you book with TUI Cruises as far as your vacation, or maybe they've gotten some type of communication with travel agents that have helped them out. There's no way for them to know who has arrived to the cruise port early. Now, also just looking at all the flight cancellations that we've seen literally all over the world, people are naturally going to be a little paranoid as far as maybe flying in the day of. It's also going to be a very hectic turnaround. To fly in and then go straight to the cruise port, very hectic. You can't wind down. You can't get your mind ready to go on vacation. You're literally going from maybe potentially clocking out at work on Friday to then the next day or maybe Sunday jumping on a plane. And honestly, I just don't see how that's going to work. Now, I do believe this is interesting. I do want to hear from all of you on this topic. Maybe I'm wrong. Could this potentially come over to the US? I would say as of right now, no, because I just think that with the infrastructure and how people operate here in the United States is different than over in Germany. I want to say in Europe, for the most part, things are a little bit more laxed up. People have more vacation times. But when you have people in the US that maybe only have like one vacation per year, they want to get their plans up and going. They're not going to go to the bar on Friday night and then the following day when they have their cruise, jump on a plane at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., go over to fly to the cruise port and then just go ahead and go from there. Now, one more thing that I do want to bring up, and again, I do want to hear from all of you in the comment section. What is the difference between somebody being in their hometown versus flying over to the home port town the next day? It's just strange. If somebody goes to the bar on Friday night in their local city versus flying on an airplane and then going to a local bar in the area which they're sailing out of, I personally don't see the difference. But anyway, guys, there you have it. Let's move on. We do unfortunately have another cancellation for Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. This will make the 5th ship that has now canceled within the fleet. So far, we've seen cancellations from Vision of the Seas, Serenade of the Seas, Jewel of the Seas, the world's largest operating cruise ship at this point in time, Symphony of the Seas, and now we have a cancellation taking place on January 22nd for Independence of the Seas. Now, as far as those 5 cancellations, 3 of those ships we know are now being used as quarantine ships. Originally, it started out as Vision of the Seas and Rhapsody of the Seas that was taking COVID positive crew members and transferring them from other ships like Symphony of the Seas, Oasis of the Seas, and Freedom of the Seas and putting them in isolation for this point in time. After that, Jewel of the Seas became a quarantine ship, and then last week, Serenade of the Seas became a quarantine ship, which marks 4 quarantine ships so far for Royal Caribbean. Now, this is unfortunate news, and if you are affected, you will be getting future cruise credit as per usual. You also have the option to do a refund. Now, I will say that obviously this news is never fun to hear. We also, unfortunately, have another cancellation from a ship with Celebrity Cruise Lines. This will be on Celebrity Eclipse, and the cancellations will take place from March 26th over to April 6th. Now, I will say that all of this, I believe, is kind of tied to the cruise lines at this point in time, not just Royal Caribbean, but even NCL, because we've seen a lot of cancellations with them. I believe it's, 12 ships out of 17 within their entire fleet so far, which we'll talk about in a minute. They are kind of reorganizing and getting ready for hopefully springtime, and which will obviously be a moneymaker season for every single cruise line within the industry. So, fingers crossed, they are able to reorganize, recollect, quarantine whoever needs to be quarantined, and they can get back to normal. That way we can sail again, and hopefully by that point in time, things will be somewhat normal. Moving on, we do have to finally talk about some optimistic news for NCL and hope that it actually happens. The CEO of NCL, Frank Del Rio, has recently come out and stated that he expects the entire NCL fleet to be operational by late spring. Now, that is at this point in time, just looking at all the dynamics and problems and obstacles that the cruise lines face at this point in time, it does kind of seem like a little bit of a stretch. However, not so much when you take into consideration all the changes and cancellations. I do believe once again that when Royal Caribbean, NCL, and all the other cruise lines are making these cancellations, they are kind of going into like a reorganizing phase. I can tell you right now that just like Royal Caribbean, NCL is also doing the quarantine ships on ships like the NCL Star, the Regent 7 Seas Navigator. They're doing all this stuff in some hope that maybe by the time spring rolls around, everybody that needed to be isolated and catch COVID and all the other things that were taking place on board their ship can hopefully be alleviated and fixed. And then they'll probably implement some policies here and there. Hopefully not like TUI Cruises where we have to fly in the day of your cruise. It's just too hectic for that to actually happen. And again, nobody's really going to follow that. But either way, guys, I do believe as far as being optimistic, this is a very real possibility. And who knows? We have seen the Omicron start to kind of decline in numbers, and hopefully it continues on that steady slope and we keep the momentum down. That way, when spring rolls around, everybody can somewhat be back to normal, but I guess time will tell. Anyway, I don't want to dwell too much on this. We also had Frank Del Rio that kind of went on the defensive, talking about how you have mainstream media and you have other outlets that are coming out and stating that because the cruise lines are providing all the information for them as far as the numbers, COVID cases, isolation, what they're doing, pretty much everything that they are providing that no other entity out there really is providing for them at all, they are using this as their advantage to talk about them in a negative light. This is why you're seeing all the media hysteria and whatnot. Now, I don't believe health organizations are going out of their way to pick on the cruise lines, but it's kind of one of those things I've been saying, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. The cruise lines are providing the information, and of course, obviously the CDC and other organizations, because the CDC is who the cruise lines have been communicating with. NCL is already committing that they are going to continue to adhere to the CDC's rules and regulations as far as being safe on board cruise ships, even though the conditional sailing order has expired. But anyway, guys, I don't want to ramble on. It's just a very interesting time for cruising right now. Hopefully we can get back to some idea of normal, the new normal. We haven't heard that in a while. But either way, I do want to hear all of your thoughts in the comment section below. What can you make of all of this? Would you be for potentially just only flying into your cruise the day of your cruise and not the day before? I gotta know. Just let me know, guys. Anyway, hit that like button on your way out. I really appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. That way you can stay updated whenever I post my videos. And yeah, that's it, guys. I will be doing a live stream tomorrow. I got a lot to talk about, so make sure you guys tune in. It'll probably be around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. However, I will let you know tomorrow. I appreciate every single one of you. I love all of you, and I'll see you later. Take it easy.